So if you're a solo artist and you're looking to sound more unique, today we're going to talk about making your own samples and why you should. I just had the awesome opportunity to present at the Creative Arts Workshop at Capital University in Columbus, Ohio. This was an awesome event and I was alongside a truly talented list of presenters, everybody from, YouTubers, audio engineers, music producers, film and media people as well. It's just a whole list of amazing individuals. Here I'm going to give you a video version of that presentation alongside some instructions about how to make your own samples and why you should. So before we make our own samples, let's talk about the term sample and what it means in today's music industry. As you know, the term sample generally refers to taking a bit of somebody else's music and repurposing it and transforming it into your own music. Think of Amen Brother by the Winstons, the sample that basically created the entire drum and bass genre and has been used in thousands of songs. The term sample in today's music industry means more than just that though. It refers to companies and subscription services that sell or license samples for your own use. Or it could even refer to things like Kingsway Music Library, who make entire songs that are meant to be sampled. So with the millions of samples that are out there today, why would you even bother to go make your own? And how do you make your own? Let's start with why. The first reason, and a really headache-inducing one, is content ID issues. So when you buy a sample or when you download one from Splice, you have the right to use that sample however you wish, with no extra legal clearing. But the thing is, so do other people. So if you go ahead and use that sample without repurposing it or changing it in some way when you go to use it in your song, some audio fingerprinting services out there like YouTube will falsely flag it as a copyright infringement. To be clear, most companies say you can use those samples however you wish. You don't even have to change them when you go ahead and use them in your song. But these content ID systems have not quite caught up with this yet, and this is a huge legal gray area in today's music industry. There are some things you can do about this now. For instance, Splice now offers an option to generate a certificate to prove that you have the right and you have the authority to use that sample however you wish in your music. But of course, there's ways to get ahead of this situation before it would ever even become a problem. The first thing is, when you go ahead and use a sample from a sample company such as Splice, it's really recommended to alter it and change it in some way. One way to think about this when you go to download samples is think about how could I take this sample and repurpose it to my own needs as opposed to just taking it straight from the service and plopping it right into your music. So that's a big reason you should make your own samples, but there's also more fun ones as well. For instance, sound design is just really fun. I love just jumping into my DAW and getting in there and saying, I'm gonna do something completely different today. I'm not trying to make an entire song, I'm just trying to make some really cool sounds. It can be really inspiring to just take that time and explore different sound palettes without the pressure of saying, oh, I need to finish this and put it into an entire arrangement. You can kind of look at it as a playground for experimentation, which brings me to the third reason. It forces you to think differently. I like to use the phrase breadth versus depth here. Instead of saying, oh, I need to make an entire song out of this melody that I have, instead we can just drill down on the specifics and focus on making 4 bars sound really, really good. As artists and producers, I think it's really important to try separating these two things sometimes. Say, hey, I'm going to take this day and just work on sound design, and then pick another time in your schedule to focus on actually finishing the music. On those days when I'm just trying to finish an arrangement or write a song, I don't even touch any of my synths that I have in my DAW. I just work on basic MIDI instruments and I let the notes speak for themselves. Doing this can help you focus on the task at hand instead of getting lost every 5 minutes because you went to go adjust a filter sweep or adjust some parameters in one of your VSTs. Sometimes when I lie to myself and say I'm going to finish a song and instead I just want to make cool sounds, this is kind of what I feel like. So I generally notice 2 different strategies when I pay attention to sample companies and the things that they put out. There are some companies that really just focus on highly usable plug-and-play sounds that are kind of essentials. They're toolkit sounds, right? These sounds are super on the grid and they're ready to be pulled straight from the library into your song. Then I also hear the opposite sometimes. Some companies, they focus on making super abstract, left field stuff that is not on the grid. It has a lot of texture to it, and these really rely on your creativity to make something cool with them. So it's like, what will you do? Will you chop it up?
Pitch it down?
Pitch it up?
Add some tremolo to it? The possibilities are endless. Then I also noticed some sample packs that are kind of in between. Some companies try to make samples that sound like they are from an old record. They have that vinyl retro feel to them. I love hearing samples that do that because it gives you that retro vinyl sound that we all know and love, but without the big headache that goes along with that because of copyright reasons. So here's essentially what you're doing when you're making your own samples. I generally start by finding sounds that have a unique texture to them, and then I try to work in a melody that fits that texture. Then I try to add effects and process them to give that sticky textural vibe to them. Here's where a lot of people will resample things and then take it even further. Also, if you're going to be exporting your samples, mastering them and getting them to a good audio level is going to be really helpful when it comes to using them later. I recommend using a consistent naming convention to help find your samples. Here's one that's really similar to how Splice names things. So here's some of the examples that I made for the presentation I did. These were all made with Logic stock sounds. With this first one, I try to start with super simple stock Logic sounds and then process them with effects to give that vinyl record type of sound. With this next one, I try to go for a more electronic Rufus Du Sol kind of sound because I wanted to explore this Alchemy synth, which I had never used before. This next sample made me so impressed with Logic's pitching algorithms. These are stock Logic sounds with a little bit of pitch bend on them, and then I pitched it down by an entire octave, and it creates this really cool sound due to the flex pitch. Along with the loops, I also made a couple one-shots by experimenting with this Alchemy synth. Here's a laser sound and a noise sweep. It's so helpful to have some of these samples that you create by yourself because they can be really useful down the line when you're working on something and you just need that certain sound. Or you can use them as a jumping off point to start a song with. A lot of times I'm working on a project and I stumble upon a melody or maybe some sort of synth sound and I really love the sound of it, but it just doesn't fit what I'm working on. So I take it and I stuff it in a vault folder that I keep in my Ableton so I can use it later. Because I'm like, this is an awesome sound, but it just doesn't fit what I'm working on and I'd love to use it later down the line in another track that I'm working on. I really recommend having one of these folders so you can kind of build your own little sound palette, your own little sample pack, and you can pull from it to use in your music. So I'm going to link down below some instructions to making your own samples. Now these are kind of specific to Logic, but you can repurpose them for any software you're working in. If you have any other questions about this, please leave a comment down below. I love talking about this stuff. I love the sound design. I love creating awesome, sticky sounding samples that we can use in our own music and have no copyright headaches with them. It's just a really fun sound design exercise and it can help you in your music down the line. So thank you so much to Capital University for bringing me to the Creative Arts Workshop to present on this topic. I can't wait to come back next year. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you're a solo artist and you need some music production, I'd love to help you out. I specialize in electronic music production for solo artists and I'd love to produce a track for you. Go check out my site at onechannelproductions.com and let's chat. Thanks again, be sure to subscribe and I'll see you next time.